I'm Bob Safian. Bob Safian. Bob Safian. Hi all, Bob Safian here. Today we have a special episode highlighting some of our favorite moments from Rapid Response in 2024. While Rapid Response focuses on in-the-moment challenges, there are important lasting lessons embedded in each conversation. We've identified 6 key lessons from the year spanning tech, leadership, and creative solutions, illuminated by 6 memorable moments from guests like will.i.am, Airbnb's Brian Chesky, and Salesforce's Marc Benioff. Together, these moments offer a foundation for dealing with our turbulent world in 2025. So let's get to it. Lesson number 1. AI disruption is only getting started. Our first lesson comes courtesy of musician, entrepreneur, and personality will.i.am. I sat down with Will in early September to talk about the launch of his AI radio product, radio.fyi. But he also explored the still evolving ways that AI is redefining music, media, and business overall. And true to Will's nature, yes, we got some rhymes. You were the first one to tell me about Udio, which is this amazing AI-based music generator that you're invested in. I mean, you prompt it, creates an original song for you. It's amazing. Now, the record labels are suing it for infringement. Like, how do you think about squaring this sort of awesome tech for creative work and the kind of creative work that underlies it, that trains it?
Say, for example, Spotify had no users. The record companies wouldn't have sued them. So the reason why they sue them is because there's like growth. The reason why they sued Udio is because Udio has growth. So it's a good thing, because that means they're going to come to some type of agreement faster. And artists and how they trained their stuff on is going to be resolved. But we're in tricky grounds now. For example, let's say, Prince was alive. And you went to Prince and said, "Hey, Prince, who's your inspiration?" Prince is going to obviously tell you James Brown, Sly and Family Stone, Jimi Hendrix. If you would ask Michael Jackson, "Hey, Mike, who's your inspiration?" Michael Jackson's going to say James Brown, Fred Astaire, Sammy Davis Jr., and Gene Kelly. What they both have in common is James Brown. And it's clear that James Brown is their big inspiration. You could see it. So in this case, from human to human, we call it inspiration. Machines call it data set. And training, what you trained on. If you would ask like an artist, be like, "Yo, who's your inspiration?" It's the same shit. Because we have a neural network, and that neural network was based off of our neural network. So now we're in a touchy ground here. Because last time I checked, Prince did not give James Brown royalties because he was inspired by him. Like his pathways was a part of his data set. So that's where it gets blurry.
Mm-hmm.
Where we are now.
Do you use Udio? Like, there's something you use it for in your songwriting, in your process?
No, because Udio doesn't do Black Eyed Peas right.
Well, you should be able to help him with that.
Yeah, but I don't want to help him with that. The way I write music, the AI doesn't write music like that, is what I mean by that.
Mm.
It doesn't do fusion right. It can do like, "Yo, give me like trap." It does that awesome. It can do like jazz great. But if the moment I'm like, "Yo, give me samba with a little bit of blues and a little bit of rock and a little bit of calypso," it's not going to do that.
Like, it's better with pure flavors, right? Like more subtle flavors or creating new flavors. It just doesn't do that as well.
Yet.
Is that what people like most misunderstand about AI? The yet, like that, like right now it can't do Black Eyed Peas, but maybe it will be able to.
This is the worst it's ever going to be because it just gets better from here.
Mm.
And that's being optimistic in every sense of the way. Ethically, morally, business practice, legally, compensation wise, this is the worst it's ever going to be. Let's be optimistic that the powers that be don't lead with greed.
Lesson number 2, the intention economy is rising. The next lesson comes from Dara Treseder, Chief Marketing Officer of Autodesk, who talked to me from the glitz and glamour of the Cannes Lions Advertising Festival, where the industry hands out top awards. I previously talked with Dara about Super Bowl ads, and from Cannes, she doubled down on the value of focus, that the story we tell our customers, our employees, and our investors requires intentionality and intensity, especially in today's marketplace.
When we talked about the Super Bowl, you and I talked about the CeraVe ad with Michael Cera. Remember that one where we talked about it? That spot that was at the Super Bowl won the social and influencer Grand Prix. Ogilvy, the agency that worked with CeraVe, the brand on this, they got more than 450 content creators to fuel speculation around Michael Cera's potential involvement with the brand. So if you think about it, from day one, they were focused on the results because it's a world where you can get lost in the noise, right? Michael Cera is just one of how many celebrities that show, every celebrity from Beyonce, right, to everybody was in a Super Bowl ad this past year. Right. How do you make sure you get the ROI on that? They had a genius way for the brand to have seemingly organic conversations on the internet around this campaign to really deliver results. The originality is so important. Things need to be original. So the other thing I'm seeing here is you can't just do what everybody's doing, right? One of the panels that I was on, someone said, we're moving from the attention economy to the intention economy because intentionality matters so much. And what we're seeing also get awarded are things that have never been done before. I like to call them MBDB. Show me the MBDB. Never been done before.
It's interesting. In some ways, we're kind of coming back full circle because there was a point where everything was about the creativity and no one really followed what was happening with the outcome. And then it was sort of like, well, if you tweak all of the, levers, the technological levers, and you use the right data and whatever, that you can get the result. And it almost seemed like the creativity didn't matter. And what I'm hearing you say is like, we're finally realizing you got to pull these two things together to really get the bang out of it.
Absolutely. The art and the science have to come together. The magic happens at the intersection of both. And so as marketers, going back to our roots of telling compelling stories, that's how we become the trusted partner to our customers. We're inspiring them with real stories where we're forming true connections, as opposed to just trying to interrupt them with, a variety of ads. We're getting back to basics. And technology is helping us propel and do that in more innovative ways than we've done before.
Lesson number 3, new talent is underestimated. Hollywood offers a fascinating lens for understanding marketplace shifts. The Anklers founder and CEO Janice Min came onto Rapid Response a couple of times to guide us through the ups and downs of the entertainment business, from awards shows and box office records to studio layoffs and industry infighting. We also talked about a platform she finds to be the most influential and the most underrated for a new generation. Here's Janice.
What we're going to see in the next few years, this is going to be the rise of the independents. That the studio system, it's like turning around a liner, ocean liner where the engine's broken. And that if the nimble upstarts will be able to move much more quickly. The way someone who had visibility to Paramount's books had described to me that even though you're seeing thousands of layoffs at Paramount, and we've seen thousands of people laid off at Disney and Warner Brothers, that there's still so much more to cut because it's an infrastructure built for another era. And the fast-moving independents don't have that burden.
I have to ask you about YouTube. YouTube fascinates me. It remains the most popular streaming platform for younger viewers, despite efforts by Netflix, Disney, Warner Brothers Discovery. Like, none seem to have an answer for YouTube's dominance. It feels strange to say it, but do we still underestimate YouTube?
We totally underestimate YouTube. When you look at the amount of time spent on YouTube versus any other streaming platform, I mean, hands down, blows away everything. So they've captured the attention economy, as people say. I think it's hard for Hollywood to think about YouTube as anything more than promotion. You put your trailers on there, you do an announcement saying how many million views a trailer got. But boy, if you think about the levers that a YouTube can switch to turn that into a more premium experience, and I know they tried that and it didn't go very well, but they have so much data at their fingertips now. And also, you're seeing this fundamental shift in the creator economy where creators used to think that Hollywood was the be all end all, that if you became a really huge creator, you might get a show on Hulu or you might get a show on.
Right. That was the goal, right? That was
and
the
now
pinnacle.
it's not increasingly for people. You have Mr. Beast doing his $100 million deal with Amazon, and we'll see how that goes. But you also have one of the watershed moments for the creator YouTube Hollywood relationship. There are these huge YouTube stars named Rhett and Link, and they ended up with a deal with Warner Brothers Discovery to do a reality show. It came out, did not do well. They ended up doing basically a 20-minute video rebuttal to Hollywood where they fired Hollywood. And they said, this is what you don't understand. You don't understand how to talk to our audience. You gave us really terrible notes. Your process is awful. And we want to have nothing else to do with you. And we are going to just talk directly to our audience now instead of through you. And I think that's the opportunity when you were talking about the independence, is that whole the direct to consumer fantasy of you don't need the middleman. And who are these old guy gatekeepers who are trying to tell me how to do my thing? And you're seeing the most successful creators make like ungodly amounts of money in a way that Hollywood probably would not have made possible for them.
Lesson number 4. Be bolder than you've ever been. I spoke to Salesforce's Marc Benioff to learn more about the company's big investment in Agentforce, an AI tool to help fulfill tasks on a user's behalf. But the key learning was less about technology than bold leadership. Marc admits his own shortcomings, crediting NVIDIA's CEO with inspiring him to go all in on AI years later than he should have. So the name of this show is Rapid Response, and you've had to make several rapid responses over the last 2 years. Your co-CEO stepped away.
Yeah.
You managed some layoffs. You restructured to enable the creation of Agentforce. How have you approached this phase of your leadership?
So I've been the CEO of Salesforce for 25 years, and as we've grown from zero to now $38 billion in revenue this year, we're obviously the number one CRM, but also now the second largest enterprise software company in the world behind Microsoft. I would say, and we use this term for startups a lot, but it's true for big companies. And I think big company CEOs like me now don't think enough about this. And it's not exactly founder mode, which is this kind of funny buzzword term that's going around.
Yes.
It's pivot. You have to be ready to shift, to pivot, to evolve, to move forward, to make things happen. When you see that opportunity, you've got to go. And I think that not enough CEOs do it. I'll tell you, at Dreamforce, Jensen Huang came, who you know is the CEO of NVIDIA. But it was interesting. I did a long conversation with him one-on-one. And my neighbor here is David Kirk, who was the chief scientist at NVIDIA and helped create the GPU. And that was 2009, 2008, 2009, 2010.
Yeah, it was a video game company, or at least that's the way I used to think of it, right?
That's
chips
right. These
chips for video.
Made triangles, all these graphics and things right on the chip level. But they didn't realize that when they built that technology, that it would be able to be used, for training models and making AI a little better. And in 2011 or 12, when Jensen saw really deep learning evolve out of Stanford for the first time, he made a pretty big decision that no one else made in the whole tech industry was, I'm going to pivot my whole company to deep learning. And by doing that, as these companies started to emerge and evolve, he would basically say, use my chip, use my chip, use my chip. And they found great performance building their AI capabilities using NVIDIA, and he became an expert in AI and became fascinated with that. I know that because I had that same knowledge and that same insight, and I saw that, but I didn't pivot my company at that point to that. And it's interesting, and I was doing the interview, I'm like, Well, Mark, how stupid are you? Like, you saw all that too, but you didn't do the hard pivot to deep learning. You did some things with AI, and you built Einstein, and you did this, but did you really do a hard pivot of the whole company to AI? No. Why that's important right now is because as I kind of have looked at the last 2 years and how AI is kind of making a little transformation here with this next generation of capability we have now, that's when I saw the agent capability emerge that I said, oh, okay, you might not have done it in 2011. You had other things on your mind. No. This is the hard pivot where for the last 2 decades, you've built all the customer touch points, Mark. Now I'm talking about myself as third party. These are all your customer touch points. Why don't you hard pivot the company? And so that's why we've hard pivoted the company to agents and agent force. I even had an employee, a top engineering executive say, this is so big and so exciting, we should change the name of the company from Salesforce to Agent Force. I'm not convinced he's wrong, by the way.
Lesson number 5, hold up a mirror to yourself and to the world. In a political and economic landscape with so much uncertainty, we need to both keep learning and keep teaching. MIDI Health CEO Joanna Strober talked to me about how she raised $100 million to better serve women as they move through menopause. Joanna's journey included accepting a tough critique about her initial fundraising tactics in service of the larger purpose of her business.
I actually went to a pitch session a year ago before I raised this most recent round. And it was done by David Hornick. He did something called the Lobby for Women. And he was training women on pitching. He had venture people sitting in rooms, and you went in and you pitched to them. And you know what? The first 2 people that I pitched to were super nice. This is nice, great business, blah, blah, blah. The third and the fourth one were like, this is not going to get funding. You have not nailed your story. It is not big enough. You don't understand how to tell a story that is big enough. And they were really honest about what mistakes I was making. And I just remember driving home and I was just, wow, like that was very helpful. It was a little discouraging, but it was very helpful. I think a lot of times women probably are like me. We're very practical and we're very thinking about our margins and we're thinking about, the business that we're building. And, one of these men is like, well, you're not telling me why you're going to be a $10 billion company. I was like, well, we could be. And he's like, well, you didn't tell me that in your story. And it was a little humbling, but it was actually incredibly helpful. I think a lot of times we don't tell the story, we women don't tell the story big enough. And I really did go back and say, look, every woman in this country is going through menopause, every single one of them. And if you look at what's going on in the country with the decrease in OBGYNs, half of the counties don't even have an OBGYN in this county. And in most of the other places, they have 9-month waiting lists. And then you look at the decrease in primary care and you realize that we have a massive shortage in primary care. And so when you look at that and you look at, we have this population, aging population of women, every woman in a country could be actually my patient. And so why am I only saying it's X size business when it really could be X times 100? And so it was incredibly helpful. And it really helped me think about what does it take to build a big company? But I have this massive audience. I have actually a group of workers who really want to come work for us. We are also the recipient of all the burnout in the healthcare industry. So those women come to us because they want to provide care in a different way. So I don't know. For me, in this last round, I was able to say, I think this can be a really big company. And I do truly believe this can be a really big company. And so it made the fundraising easier. Now we're just growing really fast. So now it's a different story because now we're just able to raise money based on numbers, not necessarily just on telling a big story.
Lesson number 6, your best strategy may start with your gut. I spoke to Airbnb co-founder and CEO Brian Chesky in June about the company's new Icon experiences. It turns out the prototype for the program started with one-off initiatives that Brian wasn't even aware of, and that he sort of backed into the strategy. His commitment came largely from his instincts, and even when financial numbers supported the idea, he invested in details well beyond what a numbers person would advise. Here's Brian.
10 years ago, I remember I was with my co-founder and roommate, And we're living at this apartment that we started the company in, and we need to get some furniture. And of course, back then, IKEA would have been the place we would have gone. Mm-hmm. So we drive to Emeryville in Joe's like red Jeep Cherokee from like the 90s. We get to an IKEA. We're walking down the hallway, and we see a bedroom, like, those IKEA like showroom bedrooms. I remember saying to him, like, wouldn't it be funny if we put this on Airbnb? It would, like, as a joke. And we started like talking about it internally, like a joke, like we're going to like list a night at the IKEA. Well, somebody in our Australian team, unbeknownst to me, hears about this idea and reaches out to like some marketing executive in IKEA. And they one day tell me like, hey, we got this IKEA in like Sydney, Australia on Airbnb. So it gets listed on Airbnb and it becomes like a bit of a sensation. Like a family 3 books it. Everyone wants to stay there. Then one day, somebody on our team says, we have an idea to list Blockbuster on Airbnb. And I'm like, Blockbuster?
I remember this.
I'm like, yeah. I didn't think there were any more Blockbusters. Used to be. And she's like, actually, it turns out there's one left in Bend, Oregon. So we call up the owner or the store manager and we say, can we put this Blockbuster on Airbnb? And I'm sure at first she was like, what are you talking about? But she went with it. We put on Airbnb. It became a sensation. It went all over the internet. It got thousands of press articles, probably got millions and millions of dollars worth of press. So then last year, the Barbie movie's coming out. I think it was Mattel and Warner Brothers that reached out to us. And they said, could we do like a promotion with Barbie? Because they were going to do a bunch of these like Barbie marketing activations. And so we said, sure. So we found a house in Malibu, in the hills of Malibu, that looked a little like the Barbie house. And we basically like to the last detail, like really like every corner of the space we recreated as if it was a Barbie Malibu dream house.
That is your way to the last detail.
To the last detail. As Charles Eames said, the details aren't the details, they make the design. And Walt Disney, would like look at like the back of a trash can. And I do think that everything is just an accumulation of details. I think that's a good characteristic of design. But so anyways, this Barbie house we put on Airbnb, it gets more press than the IPO. And we're like, what the hell? Like, so at this point, I'm like, the universe is trying to tell me something. The universe is telling me that like the world wants this.
And so there's not necessarily a strategy behind it. There's just like a feeling that like there's an opportunity
At this point, it was purely a feeling. Like in hindsight, we backed into a strategy. And sometimes things start with a strategy. Sometimes things start with like, we need more engagement and we need blah, blah, blah. But I got to tell you, Bob, sometimes I honestly think the best ideas start with a vision. They start with an idea. They start with a feeling. And then you validate them by reverse engineering a strategy to make sure what you're doing actually makes some sort of modicum of business sense. So it's October. And I rally the team together. It's only like 6-7 months ago. And I said, we need to create a platform for Barbies. I want to be able to come to Airbnb and see a whole series of Barbies on the homepage. But I don't just want them to be stays because I want them to be experiences. And in fact, I want all these to feel like they're experiences, not stays, because this is going to be a bridge to where we're going. We're going to eventually relaunch experiences. And I said, this can be the way to do that. So we huddled together and, probably my favorite concept that the team came up with was the Up House. And the Up House was one of my favorite movies. And I said, if we're going to build this Up House, you better make sure like it is down to the last detail because people have been to Disneyland and their expectation is that it's done to the level of Disneyland craft and it can't look like a Disneyland knockoff. You open the mailbox and there's brochures and they're graphic designed. It's that level of detail. So we do that. We design this house. It takes like 100 people to do. We assemble like fabricators, like prop designers. We had to assemble like a team of 100 people to build this house. Then I have this thought. I said, wait a second. I know we're going to build a house, but if it doesn't go in the sky, it's not really the Up House. And the problem is most houses aren't constructed to be lifted in the air.
No, they're supported by the ground, right?
And so if you lift a house, it collapses. There's no structural integrity. So we ended up working with structural like engineers to figure out how can you construct a house that's 40,000 pounds. Okay, 40,000 pounds. That can be lifted 50 feet in the air, 50 feet, 5 stories in the air, and above it will have 8,000 balloons. Now, you can't be helium balloons. Obviously, the physics doesn't actually work out that you'd need like the biggest helium balloons in the world, and if they deflate, you like fall to your death, so you can't do that. So we ended up creating a steel structure And then we found the biggest crane in the world, or one of the biggest cranes in the world. And these cranes are basically used for windmills, those like wind farms. And we had to work with like safety experts to figure out like how the house doesn't rock. And we had to work with meteorologists because it turns out about 11 miles an hour is the amount of wind that house can withstand before the rocking becomes dangerous and the props basically just dismantle. We found land in New Mexico where they filmed Oppenheimer, and that's basically, it kind of looks a little like Venezuela, so where the film takes place. And so that's just one of the icons. So anyways, long story short, we do this for like 11 of them. Given the response of Barbie, I knew if we put out icons, number one, we'd remain top of mind. Now, everyone knows Airbnb, but like our competitors spend $4 or $5 billion a year on like performance marketing to stay top of mind. And everyone knows of them too. So we're in an industry where even if people know you, people only come to your app once or twice a year, not like Instagram, because you travel. So you have to remain top of mind. The second thing is like, we're in every country in the world with only a few exceptions. But like, this was the best way to reach certain audiences. We want to reach the community in India. Who's the biggest Bollywood star? Let's work with one of them. So it really works. And the third thing is the Airbnb brand, on the one hand, pretty amazing. Like, it's a noun and a verb. It's one of the only brands that is like Xerox or Kleenex, right? It's like, it means something. The problem is, it's a noun or verb that means a B&B, a place to stay. It's almost like if Nike meant running shoes. How do you sell basketball shoes?
Right. It becomes narrow.
It becomes narrow.
Yeah.
So it turned out that by building this platform for icons, it kept us top of mind. It allowed us to reach all these segments. And it became a gateway to people thinking about Airbnb, not just for stays, but experiences. And that allows us to pave the way for the next few years.
There you have it, our 6 lessons of rapid response from 2024. Of course, there are many more embedded in our episodes. Thanks to everyone who's listened to the show this year. Your attention and support means so much to us. We'll continue to release new episodes every Tuesday and Friday in 2025 to keep you informed on all the rapid responses leaders are navigating throughout the business world. I'm Bob Safian. Stay safe and happy holidays.